He was drafted into the army in the early winter of 1941. Together with his brother, his fellow hunters, he joined the Siberian division. The brothers agreed to stick together and asked the commander to give them a machine gun. The commander promised to help, and for 2 weeks, while they were getting to Moscow, he patiently explained to the brothers the device of the hand machine gun. The commander, with closed eyes and full view of all the soldiers, deftly disassembled and reassembled the machine, and during the journey, the brothers learned how to handle the machine gun. Of course, they realized that there was still a lot to learn before they could become real machine gunners. They had to practice firing over their advancing soldiers, firing at targets that moved quickly or appeared suddenly. Learn to hit airplanes and tanks. The commander assured that all this will come with time, and the experience of fighting. Combat is the most important school for the soldier. We arrived in Moscow on a frosty morning. Column, with rifles behind their backs, passed through Red Square and immediately went to the front. The rifle division formed in the Urals was moving to the front. As part of one regiment went to the front 2 brothers, Fyodor and Vasily Okhlopkov. The commander, with 2 cubes on the buttonholes of his overcoat, kept his word. He gave them a hand machine gun for 2. Fyodor became the first number, Vasily the second. Being in the forests near Moscow, they saw how to the front line approached fresh divisions, concentrated tanks and artillery. It seemed that after heavy defensive fighting is preparing a crushing blow. Forests and groves came to life. In early December, after artillery preparation, the division went on the offensive. In the first chain of their battalion, brothers ran over, often hiding in the prickly snow, giving short bursts on green enemy overcoats. For 2 days the hot battle with tanks and airplanes lasted without a break, and for 2 days nobody slept a wink. Pursuing the retreating enemy, the soldiers liberated villages, burned to the ground, and occupied the northern outskirts of the city of Kalinin, covered with fire. After a long retreat, the Red Army was advancing, and the most pleasant sight for the Soviet soldiers was to see the enemy fleeing. During 2 days of fighting, the regiment, in which the brothers served, killed more than 1,000 fascists, defeated the headquarters of 2 German infantry regiments, captured rich military trophies, cars, tanks, cannons, machine guns, and hundreds of thousands of rounds of ammunition. And Fyodor and Vasily, just in case, stuck in the pockets of their overcoats on the trophy parabellum. They were almost continuously on the front line. Judging by the combat characteristics, Fyodor Okhlopkov from the first days on the front line showed personal bravery and special skill to destroy the enemy. But the personal victory was given at a high price. On January 1, 1942, together with many hundreds of soldiers and officers of the division, his brother Vasily gave his life for the motherland. He died early in the morning, when the troops broke through the enemy's defense and advanced a kilometer. That day, during the next attack, Fyodor picked up a machine gun and ran towards a crater, which he noticed in advance. From here he began to support his attacking soldiers, and when the disc ran out, he did not turn around, held out his hand and habitually gestured for a new one. But this time his brother did not give him a new disc of ammunition. Then he turned around anxiously and immediately fell down. 10 paces away from him his brother lay motionless in the snow, all stretched out and clutching at his chest. He rushed to his brother, took his hand, and still not believing, not wanting to believe in his brother's death, gently lifted him up, put his head around his head and put him in his lap. Sweat froze on his face in large dewdrop-like drops. The bridge of his nose was pale, as if it had been rubbed with chalk. The pupils of half-closed eyes turned upward. Blood oozed from under his fingers pressed against his chest. Fyodor listened, but no, not a single vein beat, not a single muscle twitched. Apparently the death convulsions had already passed. In despair Fyodor began to shake the lifeless body, then pressed him to himself, as suddenly it seemed that his brother was still alive. Putting him down, he scrutinized his face. He was indeed alive. The globes of his eyes drooped slightly downward and his lips moved. The brother wanted to pull his right hand away from the wound, but he couldn't. He moved his lips some more and immediately all softened, and the halted eyes opened. How unexpected, simple and ridiculous this death was. At first Fyodor did not realize that his brother was finished. But immediately he felt his heart beating with a strange pinching pain. His mouth became dry. Blood rushed to his head. He trembled all over, the sky turned upside down in his eyes. He was brought to his senses by the pain from the blow of his fist against the bayonet of the rifle that had been overturned in the snow. Fyodor jumped up and dragged his brother's body into the first funnel. There he laid him on his back, crossed his arms on his chest, closed his eyelids. Then he knelt down and bowed his head. That's how they had to part them. Will they bury you or will you stay here, covered in snow? At that thought Fyodor shuddered and rage came over him again. He quickly jumped up from his seat and ran to the machine gun. He saw in front of him only fascists, who, unable to withstand the onslaught, ran away. He saw where he directed the fire of his machine gun, saw how the fascists were falling, how the living, pushing each other, jumping over the dead, running away from the deadly rain. He sees and gloatingly shouts, "Choke on it!" Many soldiers and officers lost the division. The regiment commander died a brave death. A torn bullet of a German sniper fell Vasily Okhlopkov. He died in the arms of his brother, easily, without agony. Over Vasily's body, Fyodor made an oath, promised to avenge his brother and open his personal account of destroyed enemies. But after the death of his brother, Fyodor changed greatly. He became restless, irritable and silent, does not talk to anyone. He was constantly engaged in endless soldiers' worries. He would mend clothes, clean the machine gun. No matter how he held back, but still managed to quarrel with many people, once even fought. Who knows how long Fyodor could live like that? But one day, another replenishment arrived in the regiment. This time people arrived different from the previous ones, noisy, mischievous. There were some who behaved defiantly. The frontline soldiers were standing at the camp kitchen having lunch, and then a young man came up and handed his wok to the cook, as if there was no one else here but him. Fyodor felt uncomfortable. He snatched the kettle from him and threw it aside. The next morning he was summoned to the commissar's dugout. He thought it was because of the incident in the kitchen, but on arrival it was different. The commissar started asking simple questions. How long had he been at the front? How was he fighting? And then he asked, if the Germans had surrounded us, would you have raised your hands? No, Okhlopkov replied, I'm fighting to the death. That's good, we know you're an excellent machine gunner. We see how you are among the first to attack, and leave the battlefield with the last. Despite everything, you fight hard and skillfully. They write about you in the battle papers as a tireless avenger. But still we have to tear you away from the machine gun. The commissar began to ask Okhlopkov about the past, whether he was a hunter, whether he had experience in rifle shooting. Fyodor told how during military training he got a little acquainted with sniping, how there he took first place in shooting. The commissar was very happy and said, we will organize a sniper group of the regiment. You are the first candidate for this group. But don't worry, we won't take you away from the machine gun for good. You see, the battles now are similar to the defensive, so in defense you will be a sniper, and in the offensive you will take the machine gun. The conversation with the commissar had a healing effect on the future sniper. Maybe it was the suddenness of the call, Fyodor's remorse for the unpleasant incident with the newcomer, or the realization that his presence at the front was necessary. In any case, the state of confusion and dissatisfaction that haunted him after the death of his brother no longer tormented Fyodor. He gradually returned to the usual confidence. So Fyodor Matvievich Okhlopkov became a sniper, and by August 1942 his fame as the best sniper of the division, the army and then the front had begun to dawn on him. He was a rare master of accurate fire, who acted with equal success in defense and offensive. In the attack he always went ahead, in the first chain of attackers, because in his opinion it was the most suitable place for a sniper. By flashes of flame, he quickly found enemy machine guns and silenced them, unmistakably getting into narrow embrasures and slits. He also knew how to fire anti-tank rifles and mortars. He knew how to disarm mines, went on reconnaissance to the rear of the enemy, and brought prisoners. And to be a troop scout is not given to everyone, it is a special military feat at all times. Fyodor Okhlopkov more than once went out and dueled with enemy snipers. His name began to appear more and more often on the pages of the military press. In the middle of December 1942, he killed 99 enemies. Okhlopkov was in the most brutal battles. He has a sharp hunter's eye, a miner's firm hand, and a big hot heart. By June 7, 1944, sniper of the 234th Rifle Regiment, Sergeant Okhlopkov killed 420 Hitler's soldiers and officers with a sniper rifle. This number did not include those December 1941 27 Nazis and several hundred enemy soldiers and officers, hit by him with rifle and machine gun during numerous attacks and defensive battles. For these feats he was presented to the title of Hero of the Soviet Union, but the commander of the 1st Rifle Corps downgraded the award to the Order of the Red Banner. On June 23, 1944, when the Belarusian offensive operation began, Okhlopkov received his 12th severe chest wound. He was sent to a medical unit, and from there to a rear hospital. The last wound took a long time to heal, and the war ended for him. His sniper account totaled 429 destroyed enemies. Only by the spring of 1945 he was discharged from the hospital. 20 years after the end of the war, during the celebration of the 20th anniversary of the Great Victory on May 6, 1965, Reserve Sergeant Fyodor Matvievich Okhlopkov was awarded the high rank of Hero of the Soviet Union.